many of the decisions have been calculated, but also, Kev, there's a lot of it's luck and timing, right? If we could all calculate it, we'd all have great businesses, right?
Detailer's Roadmap Cruise Control, where we navigate the roadways of life, business, and everything in between. Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Cruise Control Podcast. Today, I'm going to be here with one of my favorite people in the world, and I say that genuinely, like a guy that I want to emulate in my life, someone I want to be when I grow up, or like him. He's an amazing dude. Bob Phillips. Before we get started, want to say go to detailersroadmap.com. I talk about this all the time on the podcast. We do kick-ass websites. We do kick-ass SEO. We do all sorts of other things. But one of the things that differentiates Detailer's Roadmap is the support. Got a bunch of Wisconsinites up there helping you, Jenny, Maddie, and the whole team. Plus some of the cool things that we've got going on the web development front with Nick and his team. Man, I mean, like sliders and new PPF stuff and new tent stuff and web stuff, all that techie, nerdy stuff, but they do it so you don't have to. So go to detailersroadmap.com, look up at that book a demo button there up at the top right. So, hey, let's get into Bob. Bob Phillips is the president and CEO at P&S Sells, Inc., an industrial detail and car wash chemical manufacturer, among other things. Bob's responsible for marketing programs, brand management, client relations, and sales at P&S. Bob has been associated with the detail industry his entire life. He started his career in the detailing industry doing vehicles in high school and college. His greatest strengths are his enthusiastic attitude, no kidding, drive, and leadership. He thrives to achieve success in all aspects of his life and focus on providing professional solutions for his clients.
That's a mouthful.
There's your LinkedIn. There's your LinkedIn.
I mean, rewrite that. Tone that thing down a little bit.
Bob is the greatest man in the world with the greatest physique, right? Like that's what you should put for your LinkedIn. But I mean, in all seriousness, like you and I have gotten to know each other probably over the last decade and some change. And it's just, you're one of those guys that I look to honestly as like, married for a long time, successful business guy, great kids, great, fitness, like, everything that I stand for and want to achieve, you're working towards that. And I don't say you've achieved that because we're all a work in progress, right? But like you're a guy that I want to emulate, and a guy that I think anyone in business and life can do so. So that's enough smoke up your butt kind of stuff. I was going to say,
but I got you drinking the Kool-Aid, right? Because behind the Iron Curtain, it's not that great, right?
Yeah, we don't share that. That's the edited version of this podcast. But no, seriously, I appreciate you being here. It's always fun to sit and talk to my friends, and you're among the top of those. And so thanks for coming, man.
No, I'm thrilled to be here. I got to tell you, I love your intro about Details Roadmap. They are, and I before we got on, I said, man, they're making a nice contribution to the detail industry. I mean, just helping the detail industry be more professional, gain in sales, gain in market share, educate customers. I mean, Details Roadmap does all of that. So it's awesome to be a part of this for sure. Anything I can do to give back, right?
There you go, right? Helping the industry, and with Details Roadmap, like they really want to do what you and I have been talking about forever, which is we want business owners that own detail shops, right? Like that's the kind of industry we want to be, not just, hey, just some detailer. And so that's one of the big things with Detailers Roadmap that we're able to do. So I'm super excited to be a part of that team. I always ask for the superhero backstory, right? And so I want that from Bob Phillips. So all superheroes, of which you're a semi-superhero, bitten by a spider or something, I don't know, and make you look so good. Give me your backstory. I know that a lot of detailers, business owners are listening to this. So that whole story about running the truck and being part of your dad's thing, your brand with Babes. I just got off podcast with Jay from G Technics. So I'll tell you that story in a bit. But all of that story. So let me know.
Yeah. I mean, the root of it was just a great family upbringing. I think, that's kind of sets the standard. My dad was a really, good shining example with good ethics, good morals, love to give back, love to push other people forward. And, I think it just, as a young kid, I look to my dad, obviously, to be an example of maybe what I should be. And then, just when I look back on some of the things that really influenced my life, team sports was huge for me. I mean, I was a football player and I was never the biggest football player, but I was, had the positive attitude that I think I still exhibit now. And, it was usually, team captain, but it was never an ego thing. It was just like, man, I just love working with others and I just, making the team better and trying to improve. And I had great coaches. And I think that just, that kind of started me on the right path. And then I just, kept that going throughout, my career and life. And, I've been fortunate, my dad, I started in this business. P&S certainly wasn't what it is today. It was a much, simpler business, but it was a great platform to start on and then to move forward, so I had a good start. And, that's, a lot of people don't have a good start. So I had a good start. So I had a little, a tailwind, if you will, kind of pushing me along in the right direction. And then it was up to, it was up to me and my brother to, take P&S where we wanted it to be. And, we've been, many of the decisions have been calculated, but also, Kev, there's a lot of it's luck and timing, right?
Yeah.
If we could all calculate it, we'd all have great businesses, right? I mean, you can make a great business decision, but it may not be the right one. And, and it's hard to say, well, then it wouldn't have been a great business decision. Well, sometimes, the right decision always doesn't get you to the right place.
Yeah.
If that makes sense in business, for sure.
Yeah, and you may have the right decision, but at the wrong time. You may have terrible decisions, but the timing's perfect, right? Like it's
you never know. When I look back, I mean, there were periods, I've been doing this my whole life, and there were periods where we were coasting because that's what life allowed us to do. I think about when I reflect back on P&S and my career inside P&S. While my kids were growing up, now that they're grown, but, between the ages of, say, 4 and 18, there was some coasting time because the business had to coast and the family, came first. And then, maybe the last 10 years, my kids are older now and, I'm spending more time on P&S and, the results are, the rapid expansion and growth of P&S. So, yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's important as a distinction that you could look at that and say that was a mistake, right? Like some people would be like, oh, well, if you had only done XYZ, right? But I mean, my stance on marriage and family, right? Like that's in my mind, that time and investment created the opportunities that happen later. But it also, I always talk about don't get so busy building a business that you forget to build a life. Right. And I think that's a great example of like, all right, the business is doing well. I'm still engaged, but I need to be more engaged over here.
Yeah. And I do think for sure there were many times in my career where I let the business overshadow the family and I needed to reset, from a business perspective, but also you talked about sports or athletics. I can remember when I was in my early 30s, triathlons were huge and they were, and I was like, dude, I can swim, I can run, I can bike, I can do all this. So, that was kind of a path I was going down. But then all of a sudden I went like, this is like the most selfish sport on the planet because it's such a time suck. And so
it's like 10 hours a weekend at least. Yeah, plus all the other things, right?
I'm not gonna do that anymore. So it was a conscientious decision I made. It's like, hey, I can't spend my weekends training. I need to spend my weekends with the family. So, everything in moderation, right? I mean, that's the best way to manage everything we do. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of people that are listening to this that, young families, small families, whatever. How does that balance work with trying to grow a brand? And, you're like me, you've effed it up enough times. I have too. Like how to, in general, like what's the mindset and mentality around, prioritizing those things. Cause and I talk about this on this podcast so many times, which is seeing those pictures of these guys that have 2 a.m. on their watch, right? They're showing the car in the background, and I hate those pictures. Irritates the crap out of me, because I'm like, if you're a single guy, that's great, but if you have a family at home, that's dumb. But talk about that balance, right? Like this podcast, we want to talk about life and business and relationships and all that together. So talk to me about that.
Well, okay. Full disclosure, Kev, I'm not sure I'm the best at the balance. I wish I was.
Can you get Yvette on the phone and we'll talk to her?
Exactly. I was going to say, you can talk to her. Well, so she may be watching this thing, and if I tell the story, she's going to go, yeah, that ain't right. So I don't want to sit here and say I'm the best at balance. Hey, people like us, Kev, we're a little bit extreme, right? Mm-hmm. I think the key thing is it's okay to be extreme, but you kind of got to know, like, okay, pull it back. And I think I do have that sense of, when I'm investing too much time in something and then I pull back. And so when you're managing your business, you may have to pull back a little bit. Mm-hmm. The question is knowing when you're at that point where it's time to pull back.
Yeah.
Because, I think the people that have a lot of problems are the ones that just like forget everything else and never pull back. We see that in, extreme professional athletes. I mean, let's face it, they have to be extreme at what they do. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure life balance in professional sports, they don't fit, especially today because it's so competitive.
Yeah.
You can't necessarily be average.
Yeah. And that requires sacrifice on everybody's part. So, I mean, if, you've got people like Tim Tebow and some of these guys that are like more dedicated to their family, but they also like, I can't remember the name of the player, maybe, they were making fun of them because his wife actually lays out his clothes for him. Because because that way he doesn't have to think about that on game day. Like all of those things, because she has her particular role in that job. And so like that allows them to go through that season, which and season of life. That's not a very long season, 5 or 6 years, maybe, or I don't know what the average is for a professional athlete, but it's not very long.
I'll be honest with you. That doesn't shock me at all. I mean, think about it. When I was a collegiate athlete, the night before, what'd you do? I got everything ready. Mm-hmm. I got my uniform ready. I got everything ready because there was nobody going to do it for us because, it was this was low budget, right? We had to drive ourselves. We had to do everything, but you got all your gear ready beforehand. And in life, and we do that now, because you're planning for a trip, you got to get your stuff ready. So if you're an extreme athlete and your time is, everybody's tugging on you, you're going to need a personal assistant to make sure. Mm-hmm. Who knows that, whether it's your wife or whoever it is, you're going to need that.
Yeah. And so having that team is really important. I think, and I think what I wanted, the reason I asked that question about balance and family and all that, because we're going to be 29 years probably before this thing airs, July 14th. So we've been married for 29 years. You've been married for how long?
34 this November.
34 years. So that doesn't happen by accident, right? Like you can't build a successful business and a successful family without at least, going back and forth and working those mountains. So what I want to do is I want to encourage the younger people that are listening to this, especially, to say, look, there are things that you have to do both business-wise and family-wise to make this a lifelong process. And I look to people like yourself and hopefully like myself as an example, that you do screw it up, but over time, hopefully you make more good decisions than bad ones.
Well, number one, you got to find the right partner.
Yeah.
That's, you have to find the right partner.
Yeah.
And not every relationship, not people aren't built to withstand. I mean, owning a business and running a business and a family, it's a complex situation. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
And Kev, let's just talk about when the business is successful, right? When the business is successful, it's still complex because you're trying to balance family, you're trying to balance business, you're trying to balance, your personal, whatever you're doing. Let's just throw in what happens if the business goes south. Mm-hmm. And now everybody's involved in that. I mean, It's a, it's probably, I would think, owning a business is extremely stressful on the family because of the ups and downs. I mean, you can have a good day, bad day. I can tell you this, my wife knows me very well, obviously after 34 years. When things aren't going right to me, she goes, you need to go work out. Right. Exactly. Seriously, because it's my mental break. You have to have a mental break in life. And so fitness to me is really what grounds me. I find that not so much with my family decisions for me are extremely easy. They don't seem complex to me, right? You do right by the family, you care for your family. That's what I feel. That's what my job is, right? I got to care for my family. I always say this: if my family's good, everything else can be chaos. I don't really care, right? Because I can take all that. I can't take it if my family's not happy or doing well. And so if the family's doing great, that's good. But and so that to me is the huge priority. And a lot of people forget about that. But you also have to have a spouse that's, your partner that's going to support you when, man, business isn't doing that good. You got to go work on that. That has to be a priority right now. And they have to be accepting of that as well. Because a lot of partners can't handle that. It's not all about them. A relationship can, basically be ruined because, one partner has to focus on something, but the other partner can't accept them doing that. So it's got to be, give and take. I will tell you this, my wife gives a lot more than
mine too.
Dude, you're lucky. I'm lucky. I'm so lucky when it comes to that because, business can be taxing, even like I said, even when it's successful, but, take when, like when the downturn of the economy happened, right? You're like, there's a lot at risk.
It's not for the faint of heart. And that's, and that's why, a lot of times people get so invested in, hey, I got to grow, bigger shop, more people, all this stuff. And sometimes I'll tell them like, dude, are you happy with your life right now? What are you making? Well, I make X number of dollars a year. Do you like that? Are you good with that? Is your family happy and healthy? Yeah. Well, slow down. Like, don't stay off Facebook where everybody else is doing $1.5 million a month or whatever you think, which is all lies anyway. But like, be content with some of that and focus on having a total level of success, right? Like
there's some amazing detailers that I've met that basically just kind of fly under the radar. They got a mobile business. They do it. They get up in the morning, they work till noon or 1, and then their afternoon's theirs, right? And they're doing just fine. They're doing great, right? Because they have that great, work-life balance, which is extremely important, particularly as a business owner. It's really hard to find that. You gotta be able to turn it off, but sometimes you can't turn it off. That's the hard part, because when, if a business isn't doing well, it's hard not to overwork it because, your brain tells me I got to keep working at this because it's not doing well. And sometimes that's not the right move, right? Sometimes you got to step back, look at it, reevaluate and go, wow, I'm working way too hard at this. There's a better way to do this.
Yeah, I have, and I've told this story on the podcast before, but I have a business coach, and I was like, so I have a whiteboard, which is right over here. I'm pointing to the right, is over here on my wall. And I had all my brands and my projected numbers and my goals and all these things. And I was just freaking obsessed about it. It's like, well, did the Shopify ding happen and we sell this or whatever? How was this day and this day? And so I talked to my business coach about it. He's like, dude, you're just stop thinking about it. Just go do what you need to do. So I erased all of those numbers and I wrote on my wall, it says, have fun, serve others, and build a life. Yeah. So those are my 3 business objectives for 2024. And my assumption is that if I do all those things, the numbers will take care of themselves. And I've been doing it for about 2 months now, and they are taking care of themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously there's logistics that have to, I still have to do what I still have to do, but as far as a mental thing for sure.
Yeah. I think if there was any, one critique of me for sure. I mean, I use this term a lot of times inside P&S. We got to get out of the way, right? A lot of times I'm way too much in the way. And what I mean by that is I kind of got my finger a little bit in everything. And I trust people. I'm like, hey, one of the things too is, if you give somebody a job and you're going to give it to them, you have to accept the fact that they're going to make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
But, are they catastrophic or are they just things you need to work on? So a lot of, entrepreneurs can be over controlling and not allow people to make mistakes. Quite frankly, I love giving people the license to screw up.
Yeah.
Because they learn from it. And usually our company learns from it. I learn from it. And it's okay, so because that's just part of life and business, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure. What you described on the football field is what I call in my other life, servant leadership.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know if you've used that term for yourself. How does that translate into what you've done at P&S and what you do in your business? That kind of I know the enthusiasm makes sense, but just overall, like, how does that help you run the company?
I'll be honest with you. I'm not sure it really has translated that well. Being an athlete, typically on a football field, you lead by example, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you run the hardest, hit the hardest, work the hardest, you're well respected. That doesn't necessarily work in business, right?
I mean, if you tackle Dave in the middle of the afternoon,
dude, it would be good, right? I mean, some guys I want to tackle them, but the thing was, there has to be an element of coaching, right? And so there has to be an element of, like we talked about, letting people take on roles, give them the authority to run that role, let them do what they do, and then be able to come in and constructively coach them. I think one of the things that I've had the hardest thing adjusting to. I don't think, young adults play a lot of team sports anymore. And this is kind of sound like I'm an old guy and they don't take coaching very well.
Right.
Even to walk up and go, hey, you're doing a really good job, but I'd like to see this happen. And all of a sudden you see him like, it's like a threat. I'm like, wait a minute, this is just commentary here. We're just trying to get to a better place, so I think there's a great opportunity to lead, like the football style. You can work harder, you can do it, lead by example, and you can hope people will follow. But there's a certain group of people that'll follow, they'll get that, they'll respect that. And then there's a whole nother group that they need coaching, they need mentoring, they need, so I'm not sure that, that original style translates really well, but I can tell you that, if you're willing to coach, it's still great to lead by example and then coach people along. So you need to do a little of both, because as a player, you don't really coach. You kind of just go crazy, right? So there needs to be an element of coaching in there as well.
Yeah. And how do you deal with that? I mean, one of the things that we're all struggling with, well, I don't, because I don't have like actual employees that work with me day to day, but so many are struggling with getting employees. How are you dealing with what would be uncoachable or seemingly uncoachable? Because in my mind, there's a way around that and to get to the right language. But how are you handling that as a leader of a company?
So, I mean, there's always a workaround, there is, but a lot of the time that workaround requires too much work. And so you almost kind of have to make an assessment, and P&S is very loyal to its employees. Most of our guys have been here, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. Wow. So we have a lot of longstanding employees. But I think the most frustrating thing as a business owner is really not being able to reach somebody. And there are people that aren't reachable, even to the point, you can only do so much as you talk mentoring, right? You can only do so much coaching as an employer. You go like, maybe you should work out a little bit. Maybe you should, eat a little bit better. Maybe you'd feel better when you come to work in the morning, or maybe you shouldn't party so hard at night. I mean, all these things. But as an employer, you can't really say any of that. Yeah, I tell my kids that, but I certainly
especially in California, you'd be in real big trouble there.
Yeah, you can't, so it's always interesting to me, I kind of hope people pick up on things, but a lot of times they aren't coachable. They they don't get it.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the biggest challenges of being a business owner is having a certain percentage of your staff. It's just going to play out like that typically, where they're not very coachable. And how do you work with them?
Yeah.
And I think what we try and do in P&S, we try and put people in positions where they can be successful as a way of coaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
And allow them to flourish in that environment. And then that's kind of the workaround.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you may have someone that it sucks at one part of this, or not sucks at, but is just not gifted towards a particular position. And it's good when you have a little bit of a larger company, more to choose from. But, maybe they would excel at this other thing. And so then you can maybe look at it. And sometimes you take the Gary Vee approach, which is hire fast, fire faster. Right? Like, unfortunately,
the grass is not always greener. No. It's just not, you think it is. And, sometimes the grass, but I will say this as an employer, when you find yourself spending too much time on a person, they become a distraction. That's a very difficult decision. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a definite challenge for sure. I mean, and I hire VAs and third parties and that kind of stuff. So I do more 1099 guys. So I keep the actual employee aspect of it for my business, which I probably need more employees anyway. But I want to talk about ATG. Do you want to talk about ATG?
Sure. Yeah.
I would love to know, so this is a process. I was thinking about this earlier today, thinking about that. I'm in a world where this whole exit strategy and selling your business and all that kind of stuff is something that's fairly common in like the people I hang out with. Right. But I think in the industry in general, when we're talking about detailing businesses, it's just it's a foreign concept. Like when you talk about acquisition, you talk about partnering and all these different things. Like, can you just explain how what that looks like? Like, did you start, was this initial plan? Did it just kind of fall in your lap, or I know it took a while, it was a while in the making, but I would just like to do kind of the 101 of company sale and acquisition. if you would. Well, by the way, I may have a couple of brands that would be up for sale given.
Yeah. It is kind of foreign in the detail space. And I think one of the things too is that, it's hard because, people associated P&S so much with Dave and I, right? Mm-hmm. And so, there was this element that we're just going to do it forever, right?
Yeah.
And so for us, we started working on it 3 years prior to us actually selling the business, or putting the business up, on the market, because you have to have, things got to be. They got to be in the right
P&L. I mean, absolutely everything.
And you learn a lot. And when you run, even though P&S is a big business, it was still, it was our business. And so there's things that, maybe not matter to the owners. Like, we don't matter that every sale hit every month or every expense was, or we accrued every expense or all these things, because it really didn't matter to us. It was, it was just, we spent a lot of money this month. We'll make it up next month. I mean, those kinds of things don't, they didn't really matter. But when you go to sell your business, you got to be able to explain all that, right?
Yeah, it'll all work itself out in the wash kind of phrase that I've used. That doesn't really.
Yeah, as a business owner, you're right. It will. Yeah. It doesn't really, it doesn't really matter. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. And certainly when we hired a business broker and he came in, and the first thing he said, he goes, "There's nothing wrong with the way you guys, small businesses run their business. It'll work it out in the wash. It's fine because it's ours, right?"
Yeah.
But then at some point, your business has to grow up, and you also want to find the right partner that's going to acquire you. And quite frankly, I will tell you this: ATG was the right partner, because they came in and looked at our business and really didn't question anything that we were doing. They loved everything we were doing. I'm sure there are things that gave them heartburn, as every business, right? You're like, why did you make that decision? But that wasn't what they were focusing on. What they were focusing on is the quality, effort, and energy in the brand and what we put into the company and how we were doing. And so, when we interviewed some buyers that came in and go, "Hey, why'd you sign the lease on that new building?" And we're like, "Well, yeah, because our business is growing. And we felt if we didn't take that space, we didn't know if we'd ever have space."
Yeah,
right?
especially in
It may not have been the
in an
best
area
look,
like you guys have, right? Yeah.
right. So like, I mean, Kev, you would say like, was it best for you to build your shop out back?
Yeah.
Right? A
Yeah,
guy would go,
right,
maybe
yeah.
not. Maybe you should have hired somebody to do it. But for you, it was the best decision.
Right,
Right.
right. Yeah. If you
Yeah.
mean if it wasn't best for Michelle and I to spend hours and still not be finished, is what you're
Right.
saying.
So, I mean, but for you guys, that was the best. And so,
Right.
we had companies came in and kind of analyzed this, I don't know.
This episode is brought to you by Detailer's Roadmap. Hey, spoiler alert, that's us. We all know you need a kick-ass website in order to be successful with your business. The good news is at Detailer's Roadmap, kick-ass websites, that's kind of what we do. With the latest performance, designs, and SEO strategies, Detailer's Roadmap is your one-stop shop to be successful on the web. And don't forget, we have the best support team in the industry. Whether you're an existing partner looking to improve your lead generation or you need a brand new website, Detailer's Roadmap is here to help you be successful on the web. So go to detailersroadmap.com/success and get started today. That's detailersroadmap.com/SUCCESS.
They just were antagonizing, and we're like, hey, that's not the right partner. We were looking for the right partner, right? And so,
it's almost like letting someone adopt your child, right? Like, or borrow your car that you love or whatever, right? But only like, it's not the same as a child. It's a little bit more than a car, but it's like, it's a big emotional, like there's a lot of emotion tied into it, whether or not you try to separate that or not.
Right? Kev, I can tell you this. Nathan Iverson was a really good friend of mine. I've known Nathan for 20 years, and I now work for Nathan, right? And when we signed the deal, he knew we signed it, and it was with MPE Partners. It's with the private equity firm, and he sent me a got real, and it got real. It was very emotional.
Yeah,
very emotional. Because did I make the right decision? Is it the right thing to do? Because we're totally, I'm connected to this thing, and I'm not leaving, and Dave's not leaving. I mean, there was an element of exit strategy, of course, right? Given our age, you can't do something forever. So there's definitely an element of exit strategy. You certainly don't want to hang around too long in a business, and P&S is on fire. So if there's a time to do it, you do it when the business is on fire. You don't do it, and being on fire could end tomorrow, who knows?
Being on fire doesn't mean fire sale. That's, you want to go from being on fire to the fire sale.
It wasn't on fire sale. The business was doing well. So that's when you want to sell it.
Right. Not after.
And then there was an element of exit, but also an element of getting out of the way and providing the brand to grow. And, so that was really the one of the compelling arguments for us to join ATG, because I love the strategy, right? I think they have a great strategy and platform for P&S to stand on and grow. So, so that there was, so all those factors played in. A little bit exit, opportunity, and then the strategy of the plan is what we really like, and the people. Yeah, the people are inside. Awesome. I will tell you this. You never go into something. You hope you know everything, but once somebody buys you, that's when you really start to learn. Yeah, because up until that point, it's dating, and then once you're acquired, it's the real deal, and without a doubt. Every single person in the company is absolutely a joy to work with and has accepted P&S with open arms. And in some cases, I mean, I think about, people may or may not know, but high-tech industries in Detroit is now what we call our East Coast warehouse. And trust me, those people are working a lot harder because they just got, 300 pallets of P&S landed at their doorstep that now they're shipping. So, wow. And there's not a complaint coming out of the family. So, they're just a good group.
And what is that more of a resource? I mean, I understand the distribution. That's like super logic, makes sense. Yeah. For like to be able to take it and grow it from what you guys could do, on your own. What are the benefits? How does that look? Is it resources? Is it like, Is it just like having a bigger team, better reach, all of those things, I'm sure, but kind of walk me through that.
Yeah, I mean, there's only, at some point there was only so much my brother and I could do.
Yeah.
So, and we actually brought in an operations manager prior to the acquisition to help, organize P&S on the inside. Patrick, he's done a great job. But now we have, an operations director that oversees all the brands inside ATG and then looks at like, okay, how are you guys, packaging and filling products? How is 3D doing it? And now Pro's part of it, right? How's Pro doing it as well? And how can we get common best practices amongst all those businesses, to help improve efficiency and productivity? And then look where, capital expenditure, where does it make sense to spend the capital expenditure on, is it on the P&S fill lines? Is it on the 3D fill lines? Is it Pro? So looking at all that we have an operations director. We also just announced this Monday, we have a purchasing director. And then we also have a whole marketing team.
Yeah.
And realistically, Dave and Bob were doing all that before. So, now, I mean, there's a whole nother set of stuff put on us, but realistically, now we have a team to rely on and work with and look at opportunities. You like in purchasing, for example, 3D and P&S use the exact same gallon jug, right?
Yep.
And we buy it from the same suppliers in Southern California. And so, then all of a sudden we're looking like, well, we really need a good distributor because we don't want to stock, 4 or 5 truckloads of bottles, but let's find a good distributor to do that. And now we go to that distributor and okay, now we have this combined buying power here, and it's not always price.
Right.
That's not always the case. I mean,
because you can only go so low, whether it's 10,000 or 100,000. There's only so much meat on the bone.
But as now we're talking a larger volume of gallons, and so we're more valuable to everybody, right? Mm-hmm. So then we have hopefully more say. Yeah. So that's really what that organization has done to us. And from a distribution perspective, the ATG proposition is, basically allow our customers to have access to, multiple lines and be successful amongst all the brands.
Yeah.
Given the fact that P&S has many protected territories with protected distributors and stuff like that. I mean, we still honor all that, but it's like, hey, now we've got access to more.
Yeah. And are you guys still the primary decision makers within, or is it like more team kind of, I'm always curious about how these, because, when you got VC money or private equity money or whatever, sometimes the decision-making process changes. It doesn't mean it changes for the worse, but and feel free to share as much or as little as you want, but.
No, I mean, ultimately, I think if we did something wrong, we would not have any decision-making factor in that, right? And that would probably be okay, right?
Yeah.
No, I think it's, we still are in charge of P&S. I mean, most the decisions, if there's decisions made, quote, above us, mm-hmm. It channels through us and go, what do you guys think about this? And then we're part of that decision-making process, and we certainly have a say. The decisions that are made inside ATG, are extremely sensible. Mm-hmm. There's no radical decisions. I mean, I know a couple brothers who used to own a large chemical manufacturing company, not in the detail business, but, and they got acquired and they were gone in 30 days.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
How bad it was.
Oh, they left.
They left.
Oh, wow.
They left, okay. Right?
Which probably cost them some money, given
it probably
exit.
did, yeah. But I mean, that's not where ATG is at. That's not where MPE is at. This is about making the companies literally what they say is to make the companies better. Mm-hmm. And take all the people along with it. A lot of companies acquire a company, we don't need that person. We don't need that person. They're like, no, we're expanding. We need everybody we have and more. Right. Yeah. So,
well, because they could say, look, we have duplicate this, duplicate that over the course of these brands. And of course that may happen in some roles, but if their main objective is to keep everything, running smoothly and to grow, then it makes sense to keep everybody who's already good at their job.
Yeah. I mean, they hopefully, they made the right decision to acquire a company that's got a lot of good things going on. So,
Right.
you're not going to just like get rid of people. So,
Yeah. Do you feel like, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about ATG and kind of this acquisition and the path and how everything, do you see that? And this is something super common in almost every other industry, right? But I feel like they're on the cusp of really, like, they have so much leverage and so much opportunity now because they're already ahead of the game to do this. But do you see this as more of what may happen across the industry?
I don't know what you're talking about ahead of the game, Kev.
They're ahead of the game in that they're the only ones really doing it well.
Yeah, I can tell you this. I'm glad where I'm sitting. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So ask your question again there.
I'm just wondering if we were probably going to see more and more of this conglomeration of brands versus, because right now it's like me, right? Like I have this little bitty brand that we do okay on. We're not making millions of dollars or anything, right? But we're like, I can subside and do this thing for a long time. And then you have medium-sized me's, you have bigger me's and you's and that kind of thing. And so I'm just curious if that conglomeration is something that you kind of see coming down the road, and what does that mean for the industry?
Yeah. I don't know what I can see coming down the road because I don't know what other people are doing. I can tell you this, that's very interesting, having gone through the acquisition process. A lot of it is about size. So, for example,
so size does matter. Okay,
size does matter, But I say that because there were companies that look at us and they go, "Oh, your EBITDA is not big enough," and we're like,
right.
Well, wait a minute, we're a better deal. It doesn't matter. You kind of have to fit the right, niche. So one of the things that's unique, and I'm speaking for MPE, so if the MPE people are listening and I'm not saying the right thing, give me a buzz. But I think the thing is you have to have the right private equity firm that has gone through this process of, acquiring companies within an industry and, creating this cool offering, right? Mm-hmm. Because, that their appetite, may be, they're go, okay, we want companies that are between 5 and 50 million EBITDA, right?
Yeah.
Not between 50 and 100. So, I don't know how many people are out there looking for the 5 to 50 and, want to put them together. Yeah. And in our industry, we're made up of a bunch of really, in size of company, speak small.
1 to 5s, 1 to 5s, 5 to 10s. Yeah, there's a lot of.
It's like, and so if you get a lot of 1 to 5s, man, you got to acquire a lot of 1 to 5s to get to something, right? So it can be tricky. Yeah.
Because I don't know what the target is for most PE companies, but it's a pretty good percentage of their investment, right? Like they need to be able to recoup that certain amount. So to your point, if you only have $1 million in revenue, it takes a hell of a lot longer than if you've got $25 million in revenue in order to get that investment back.
Right. So, hey, I will tell you this, if MPE is successful, which I know they will be, then you're going to see people, it's typically how this works, right? It's a small club. Yeah. Private equity people and investment bankers, and they go, "Oh man, that was a good formula. We're going to go over and do something." So, if they can make money at it, we can make money at it. So, I think it really depends on, how successful we are, and that'll probably drive how it impacts our business. The industry, I mean.
The industry. I think you going through this process as someone that's got a very prominent face in the industry and obviously well respected and all that is good, because once those other guys start to come in, it sets the benchmark from MPE, ATG to say, look, this is what Bob said about this process. My process doesn't look anything like that, in terms of, because there's a lot of shit, like there's a lot of private equity companies, acquisition companies that could give a rip about the people. It's just numbers on a spreadsheet, right? And so it's
100%. And at the end of the day, I mean, we have to perform.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Look, Kev, if we don't, we could instantly become numbers on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
I mean, they just have to. But, I do think that one of the things that I felt as, I always hate to say I'm a leader in this industry, but I guess if you're around long enough,
You are a leader in the industry, 100%.
But the thing is, I really felt like I want to be a shining example.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like P&S, our team,
Yeah.
And when I refer to our team, I refer to everybody in our company, but I go, it's our job to do this right. I want this to be a shining example of a win in our industry. I really do. And people go like, well, why would you care? I go, I care. And I want it to be successful because I want to be a good example for other companies that say, have an opportunity to do something similar that P&S is doing, to see that it can be done and it can be done properly and, not in the eyes of what other people think. Because people normally think when private equity acquires somebody that, it's the end, right? Mm-hmm. That's kind of but realistically, it shouldn't be the end. It should be the beginning.
Yeah. The point is that if you want to grow your business, then a lot more resources and team should help that process, not end that process for you.
For example, just think about this. I mean, like Dave and I, prior to the acquisition, had talked about, we need an East Coast warehouse. We're like, God, who's going to run that? Who wants to do that? Are we going to do that? I mean, we were acquired in January. The East Coast warehouse was open on April 1st.
That's awesome.
And realistically, I know that the high tech team did a ton of work, but they did that.
Yeah.
And really what P&S had to do was to, ship the product there.
Yeah, because if you do that yourself, you got to find the property, you got to find the people, you got to find the logistics, the trucking, all of that crap that you normally do, you have to do twice. And now all you had to do is make more product and ship it, right?
And the ATG proposition is, in fact, the infrastructure's there to do it.
Yeah.
So that's what makes it that much easier. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that example, and I'm sure people are like, oh, P&S is sold out or whatever, which is technically true. But I can't imagine anyone not wanting this for a company in the industry. I think that's great. I would love, can you give some advice? So let's say I'm just like a single operator, or maybe I have a team of 5 or whatever.
Yeah.
One of the things I've been warning against since I started doing videos way back like 14 years ago was, don't name your business after yourself, because at some point you may want to sell this business to someone else whose name is not Bob or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And so, give some advice. If someone is building a business, in my mind, I think most small business owners are like, I'm just going to run this business and then eventually I'll just die and the business will die with it. Right. Like they don't have this like mindset of exit. They don't even, it's not even on the radar, right? To think that at some point someone may want to acquire what I've spent the last 15, 20 years building. What advice would you give to those people in terms of like mindset, thought process, business process, all of those kind of things? Well,
I mean, let's just take a small business, for example, like a detail shop operation. And some of them could be big. So don't, I'm not trying to, but say, a smaller bit, single proprietor, that type of thing. I mean, to make a business marketable to sell, the first thing you got to do is figure out how your business can run without you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You need to be able to step outside your business and have a shop manager, have your staff, have everything run without you, because that's what makes a business desirable to somebody who wants to buy it. Unless they want to become a detailer or something overnight, but realistically, and there's some shining examples of detail operations in our industry that, check all those boxes.
Mm-hmm.
But you're the mobile guy on a truck you're mobile detailing, and you're out there hustling every day, washing cars and detailing cars. You're making a good living, but it's probably not sellable.
Right.
Right. Because someone can just invest and do it themselves. So you need a standalone, enterprise with really, clean financials, so that when somebody comes in and wants to buy it, they can put a value on it. A business is only worth money if it makes money.
Yeah.
If so, you have to make sure that it's making money, and you've got a good track record of profit, and that really makes it marketable. So you got to set your business up like that. I mean, one of the things that's, that Dave and I probably work too hard in our business. So for these guys to acquire us, one of the things is, are you guys going to be around? We're going to be around, but the goal over the next, say 5 to 10 years is to, okay, let's figure out how, we get the Phillips brothers out from working so hard, and they can work more on their business than less in it. Right.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, we have guys like, for example, route distributors, that have route trucks that sell detailing chemicals, and they're really, really successful businesses. But, that may not be, a desirable business that somebody wants to do. They may not want to chuck chemicals on the truck and sell it. So, you got to make sure your business is desirable.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, run without you, have good financials. And so as you're making decisions over time, from branding to hiring to finances and who you hire for that, all of that stuff has to be.
I do think what's really cool, Kevin, you can agree, because, we've been in this industry a long time. There are, hundreds and hundreds of businesses now that check all those boxes in the detail industry. And 15 years ago, not a lot.
Yeah.
Because of, the awareness of detailing, right? And Kev, are you there?
Yeah, you got me.
I don't know what happened. We had a network interruption.
I saw that. We just keep going. You said you were saying.
So I think the great thing is now, there's businesses, there's hundreds and hundreds of detail operations in this country now that check all those boxes.
Mm-hmm.
And because of, the ability to make a profit, and because detailing is now respected, whereas, 15, 20 years ago, there weren't a lot of shops like that. And now there's just, I mean, I know we mentioned this on a podcast we were in before, but every time some of these shops I walk into, I go, man, I'm just lucky to be standing here. This is an amazing business.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we can all name some crazy, I go, 20 years ago, this just couldn't happen. There may have been one of these, right? But now I walk into some of these shops now, I'm like, wow. And you guys actually buy our product?
Yeah.
I'm just glad you got an ounce on the shelf. It's so impressive, right?
Yeah. There's some crazy good businesses. And I think that all these things we're talking about, I mean, that's what makes those businesses sellable over time. Or, it will be interesting to see if the same thing that's happening on the product side also begins to happen on the shop side with acquisitions and conglomeration and that kind of thing over time.
Oh, I bet I know it's happening. I know it's going to happen.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's coming. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, let's face it. I mean, if you're in a major metropolitan market and you want to, acquire 3 great detail operations, put them under one brand, start marketing it, generate a loyal customer base, charge monthly membership fees.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think just, the head starts to spin on the opportunity that you could create out of that, right?
Yeah, I can't tell my wife this conversation because you're like, you can't do another one.
But
right?
I mean, literally, that's, and all of a sudden now you've got, 4 of the highest quality shops in a market, and those 4 shops aren't competing against each other. Now they're working together to create a common brand and success in a marketplace. Nobody steal my business idea, but no, that's just, I mean, that would just, you could kill it, right? I mean, you could.
Yeah. Well, they've done it. That's what car washes did.
Totally.
The car wash. I mean, you have those guys as customers on the other side of your businesses, right?
There was a detailer at Mobile Tech Expo this year. I think it's in Florida. There's a guy kind of doing that. He's done 2 or 3, 4 shops, and I met a really great detailer, met me the year before, and he goes, I sold out, but I sold out because I came part of this. And I went, oh, that's a really great, potential business model.
Yeah. So those of you that are in major metropolitan areas and you have either funding and know how to do this, please go do it, because you'll.
Yeah. I mean,
please,
literally,
please steal that idea, right?
steal that idea, man. Make the industry more successful. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think is the state of the industry right now? We've been talking. I've been talking more and more about. Okay, so we've kind of ridden this like ceramic coating wave, right? So we rode that, and then consumer now has started to kind of figure that out a little bit more, and now we're riding the PPF wave a little bit, you know, and throwing in some tint and flat glass and that kind of stuff. And it seems like that we're chasing this next big ticket thing. I don't know if you agree with that and what you're saying, but I'm curious about. I always ask these state of the industry questions. What do you think is going on?
I have a little bit of a different take on it. I agree there are levels of the business that we're trying to achieve. So, you know, we were a basic car wash, you know, detail shop, then we did ceramic coating, now we're doing PPF and, you know, concierge services, car storage, transportation. I mean, you name it. It just, you know, there is no real ceiling on where you could take this business. But one of the things I think is, as detailers, we have to remember is we're selling a product that is totally a consumable.
Mm-hmm.
Cars always need to be cleaned.
Yeah.
It's not going away. It's going to change, but it's not going away. And I say that from a guy that's been in this business for freaking his whole life, 40 something years, that's one thing my dad taught me. You sell a consumable.
Yeah.
Detailing is people, you know, unless people just cars go away, you know, or they stop wanting to get them cleaned. But realistically, I think the opportunity is to grow is still ahead, because people are becoming more and more passionate about cleaning their car. They're more expensive. There's just great, you know, opportunities in that space. So I don't know that, you know, maybe price, you know, those types of things, but this is a market that will be here for a long time, essentially until, you know, the personal mode of transportation goes away. People are always going to want something clean, and, you know, detailers are entrepreneurs, their business, they're going to adapt to whatever needs to be cleaned. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was just reading an article today about somebody putting PPF on yachts.
Yeah. Chris actually put out a thing the other day about, you know, PPF on boats, like having a tool on the website to be able to do PPF with that. So,
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, there's so many opportunities in this business. So basically you want to adapt to whatever. I mean, ceramic coating, we're not even coating kitchens yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been talking about home stuff for like 10 years. I cannot believe that we're still not doing it at the level that I thought we were going to be doing it.
I mean, right? You know, trust me, when I had our bathroom done and our master bathroom done, I ceramic coated the whole tile and shower.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't I? You know, yeah. So, I mean, there's so much opportunity. So I agree. There's a sense of, you know, maybe the price point thing, but in terms of opportunity in these businesses, you know, like I said, we're selling a consumable. Somebody's always going to buy it. It'll change. We may have to adapt, but there's always going to be a business here, at least, you know, for the time being.
Yeah. And it's important to your point. Like you have to have a robust business so that you can deal with the price points and new services and all of those items. And it did occur to me that for whatever reason, the thought came to me is like, as we get more self-driving cars and you have more time to look around the cabin, like if you're on a plane, right, and you're probably like me, like you can see every little mark and dirt and all that stuff. So if you're just sitting there while the car does all the driving, your interior probably wants to be cleaner than if you're driving.
You're still going to want to ride in a clean car.
That's
right. Somebody driving it or not, right?
That's the big opportunity. But hey, you know, I want to be respectful of your time, and obviously now I'm a blackface with a black screen here, but.
Actually, Kev, it's a round circle with KD in the middle.
It's a round circle with KD, which is what I go by anyway. I sign on my emails KD, so that'll work out just fine. But, you know, I love that state of the industry. I think we're moving forward. I'm super excited for what's going on with P&S and ATG and MPE and all of this stuff that's going on. It's a super exciting time, I think, to be a part of the industry. You know, having been around for almost 15 years on this side, the manufacturer side, and those kind of things, and then running my own shop way before that. But it's an interesting and weird time, but it's fun, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do people get in touch with you if they want to? How do they learn more about P&S? I know you've got lots of different programs and all that stuff as well.
Man, everything's PS Detail Products, psdetailproducts.com, Facebook, Instagram, that's where it's at. Bob at pssales.com, that's my email. I run everything through P&S. I don't have any, I have a personal Facebook page, but that's about it. So yeah.
Very cool. Brother, I can't thank you enough for coming on board. This is an awesome conversation, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, Kev.
Head over to detailersroadmap.com and get your one-stop success solution today.